What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking Elder Entity Norden in this video, and I've actually been thinking about this card a lot ever since Euros wrapped up, and I started kind of alluding to it in my What the Heck Happened at the European Championship 2017 video, but I actually think, as crazy as this is going to sound, I think that Norden may have gotten a raw deal, and I know that's going to sound ludicrous. A lot of people are going to dislike the video, but try to keep an open mind on this topic. And okay, for starters, I don't want people to think that this is just sympathy for a banned card, because that is very common in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. There's like that old saying, it goes something like time apart makes the heart grow fond, or something like that. It means that if you haven't seen something in a long time, you'll just naturally start to miss it. It's why you always see people say, you know, free my nigga Construct and Stratos and, you know, all this other stuff about how they want Shirit and Laval Chain, etc., etc. back. But Norden has only been banned for 2 weeks, so it's like too early for us to have this emotional attachment where like, oh my god, I miss Norden so much, because it's like we just remember playing it like a month ago. But the thing about it is, the banning of Norden, for as much applause as we gave it as a community, and for everybody who was like, yes, Norden finally got banned, yes, it's going to be so awesome, everything's going to completely change, the banning of Norden did absolutely nothing. And the thing about it is, I'm a very liberal minded person when it comes to the ban list. I've said that for years. You can, I guess, check the record, but what that essentially means is I think that banning a card should be the last resort, and I'm for having as little cards on the ban list as possible. But of course, I'm not saying that there are no instances where cards should be banned. It's just, you know, I generally believe that, you know, put a card to 2 first, see how it is, put it to 1, all right, if it's still kind of broken, something like Vanity's Emptiness, go ahead and get it out of the game. But the thing is, like, I want bans to actually be meaningful. I guess there are 2 type of situations where a ban could be perfectly fine. It's like if you ban a card and obviously it has a significant effect on the meta, even if the ban was something that you don't agree with. Like if you look at the banning of El Shaddai Construct, that had a significant effect on the meta, because Shadows were basically just killed by that shit. You couldn't even play the deck competitively, not on a high competitive level. If you tried to take Shadows to like a YCS or a high-level regional after Construct, it was like, yeah, the deck is just doesn't have any more power plays and shit like that. Or the banning of Vanity's Emptiness. Like, have you seen anyone in the Yu-Gi-Oh community? Do you know anyone who's like, oh my god, I really wish Vanities would come back? Vanities out of the game is like one of the best things ever. It's like, oh my god, I can breathe again. I don't have to worry about somebody flipping over a card and just locking me out of my extra deck and special summoning in general. Like, Vanities out of the game made a huge impact, and it feels so good. And the other situation is if Konami kind of want to preemptively get if they want to get like kind of some like fuckery out of the game, like that's basically like the reason why the Tyrant Neptune got banned, because we all knew about like the Lyriluche play, and it was just really degenerate. And if you didn't have like Utopia the Lightning or a Kaiju to out Tyrant Neptune, it was going to kill you, and you really only had 1 turn to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and it was unaffected by everything. It was just a really shitty play that nobody would ever want to deal with for an entire format. I'm perfectly fine with those types of things, but when you look at this most recent ban list and you see that Norden was the only thing banned, and it had absolutely no major effect on the meta, because like obviously, you know, no one's playing instant fusion anymore, and I guess some people would kind of use that as the counter argument. Well, hey Cap G, no one's playing instant fusion anymore, and Zodiac don't have that crazy turn 1 anymore where they can go, you know, where they can use the Lunar Light Black Sheep and they can draw a bunch of cards with double Digesto Emerald. But I kind of like to look at the end result, and Euros just put it out on a spread for everybody to see, guys. Zodiac are just as dominant as they were before, and not even like the stupid bullshit versions that other YouTubers try to tell you are just as good as pure Zoo. That they've never been as good as pure Zoo. I'm talking just straight up pure Zodiac. It was like 70% of the meta at Euros, and when you got to the further the tournament went on, the more dominant the pure Zoo deck got. So it's like, what was the real end game with banning Norden? Like, what did it really accomplish? Zodiac is still as dominant as ever, and everybody's still getting completely destroyed by this deck. We're just getting destroyed by a slightly different version of the deck. Like, yeah, okay, we're not dealing with the super, you know, spam a bunch of monsters and draw a bunch of cards Zodiac. Now we're just dealing with, you know, hand trap, just oppressive hand trap, outgrind you Zodiac with like Pot of Desires and Soul Charge. But it's like, It's the same thing. We've done is we've exchanged one form of Zodiac for another, and it hasn't accomplished anything. And the thing about it is, and when I look at Norden as one isolated situation, like, let's think about this, right? Because I know people are going to say, well, it was still too broken in Zodiac. But the thing is that Norden's fault, or is that the Zodiac archetype's fault? And everybody would acknowledge Zodiac as an archetype it probably was a mistake, to be honest. It's completely ruined and broken the Xyz mechanic as a whole. That mechanic has been completely ruined by the Zodiac archetype. But let's just go back to about November, right? Before Raging Tempest came out, when Invasion Vengeance was the new set, and the meta was like Metaphors and ABC, and like, you know, we had the Totally Frogs and stuff like that. Would anybody have looked at the format and said, yeah, man, you got to ban one card right now in the game, it's got to be Norden? Like, no one was really saying that. I don't remember anyone saying that Norden was like a card that had to be banned. Was Norden still the most powerful fusion monster in the game at the time? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and try and debate that Norden's not a broken card, because Norden is, I mean, Instant Fusion and Norden are tied at the hip. They're like peanut butter and jelly. You can't really talk about one without talking about the other. Norden is a one card Xyz, and that definitely is broken, but it's like, if you look at the grand scheme of things and you look at Zodiac, where every monster is a one card Xyz, Norden looks like clearly the lesser of two evils. So it's like, if Norden was something that we completely tolerated and it wasn't even on our radar to be banned during the you know, the I guess post Invasion Vengeance era, then why was Norden, you know, like the big target that Konami went after as far as like hitting Zodiacs? I mean, maybe you could even make the argument that Konami ignored Zodiacs, and maybe we just kind of, I guess, we're drinking the Kool-Aid. I know I kind of was, because I thought that things were going to change, I would say somewhat significantly. But when you really think about it, in the OCG, when Zodiac was like completely tier 0 dominating, they didn't even have Norden in the game. Like, the OCG hasn't had Norden in the game for like what? Like, I think it's been well over 18, something like 21 months. It's been like a year and 3/4 or something. So they've never known Norden and Zodiac at the same time. So it should have kind of been obvious that Norden was definitely not the problem. And I don't know, it feels like mob mentality and just outrage got the card banned. But when we actually look back at it, it just didn't accomplish anything. So I guess what I'm asking is, now knowing the results, and obviously hindsight is 2020, if you had the power of Konami and you could, you know, hypothetically go back 2 weeks and you could only ban one card, would you still ban Norden? Let's say that you had the option of banning Dryden instead, or you had the option of banning Broad Bull / Barrage instead of Norden. Would you still make that same call? And do you feel like Norden is completely justified? Because I look at just a couple of things. Like, number one, we're still dealing with the same exact evil. Zodiac didn't get worse. We're just dealing with a slightly different version of Zodiac. The overall meta change it hasn't been there at all. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that True Draco are just not as good as Zodiac. And then I also kind of think that if you look at the game before Zodiac, Norden really wasn't some huge problem that everybody was like, we got to get this out of the game. So I don't know. I feel like Zodiac have just kind of been the problem. I feel like Norden, even though it's a broken card, full disclosure, I think it's a card that we definitely could have tolerated longer, and I think that it was just scapegoated. I just want bans in Yu-Gi-Oh! To feel meaningful, because they're so definitive, and it's like pulling teeth to get Konami and the TCG to unban cards. I mean, these motherfuckers are still afraid of tribe infecting virus, so, you know, we're probably not going to see Norden again for like 5, 6, 7 years, and it's like, obviously it really wasn't the problem. You know, we're still dealing with Zodiac. It's just a different form of Zodiac. So if you took this card away because of Zodiac, then what was the purpose? If the deck didn't get worse, like, why even ban Norden at all? You know, when you make hits on the ban list, they should actually serve some type of significant purpose. I mean, if you look at like Monarchs, when Monarchs were really good and they were OP and they ended up winning, you know, the North American WCQ, Konami ended up hitting Pantheism, they ended up hitting the Monarch Stormforth, and they hit Aether, and obviously Monarchs like dropped down a tier and the deck wasn't nearly as fast and consistent as it was before, but it was still, you know, definitely maybe like tier 2.5 playable. So you can obviously see it had a a huge and profound impact, but this ban really didn't have any impact, and I don't know, that's kind of frustrating to me. I don't like when Konami takes a card out of the game and it legitimately has no impact on the meta, unless it's like some crazy floodgates that nobody likes dealing with, like, you know, Kaiser Coliseum, where I'm just like, oh, okay, no one's gonna cry over that. It's like, I don't know, I feel like Norden's death was just, it was basically in vain, because like, what did Norden die for? Just, I don't know, it didn't seem like it really did anything. So you guys let me know. So I could be wrong. Maybe you guys completely disagree. Maybe you guys agree. Just let me know in the comment section and let me know why. Thank you guys for watching as always, and subscribe if you have not already.